Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to a Christmas-themed episode of Double Feature. I don't get a chance to see every movie right away, and sometimes with that, I'm like, I do want to talk about them. So we do a double feature, we talk about two movies. This time around, it's a Christmas movie. This episode will be out before Christmas, and then I wanted to talk about this film that came out closer to the middle of the year that I never got the chance to talk about. We're talking Violent Night, we're talking Confess Fletch. Two movies of equal interest to me, not for the reasons you're expecting. So let's start with talking about Violent Night. This is kind of like built up as the David Harbour starring Santa Claus Die Hard picture. And you know what? Right off the bat, that concept alone is enough to intrigue me. I was interested the moment the trailer came out because I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good concept. Santa has to save a rich family? Yeah, I'm on board for that. I think that's a really cool and strong premise that you could actually explore and do some creative stuff with. And what genuinely shocks me about this movie is it actually plays with its concept in a brilliant way. This is like what I mean when I'm always like, we need more mid-budget movies back in theaters. It doesn't necessarily mean we need like comedies to come back all the time. We'll get to that in a minute. It just means like, you don't drop $100 million into this premise. You get a star people like, other supporting roles people like Leguizamo can show up for a minute, Beverly D'Angelo can show up for a minute, and just have a good time. Like, that's all you need to do. And then play with your concept. When you have a Christmas-led movie or like a Christmas starring movie, you already have like the built-in idea for it, so you know what you have to play with, you know the beats you have to hit, the jokes you can make. It doesn't write itself, but it definitely steers you in a direction where it's an easier story to manage, because now you're like, oh yeah, we can play this theme here, we need an idea for this, well he could use a candy cane, he could use tinsel, he can use this. You have it all built up for you already, so it just makes it a little bit easier for you to get it going right. And that's what's amazing about this film, is how easily it navigates that world. So this movie is David Harbour. He is the OG Santa Claus, Saint Nick himself, an old school man from the barbarian days who is an immortal god to bring on joy to the world of kids. But in today's climate, where everybody just wants an iPad or a gift card or a video game, I love that. It is hilarious. That joke's hilarious. But in today's climate, Santa's upset that nobody really wants Christmas joy anymore. So he's kind of depressed, he's kind of drinking, and he stumbles his way to this one house he's delivering presents to, finds out they are being overtaken by these crazy terrorists who all have code names themed to Christmas, and realizes that the one little girl inside is a genuinely true believer, and he has to save her. That's the premise, and it's freaking strong. Now, we could sit here, argue all day and night about who the best Santa is on film. Harbour makes a good case for just, like, this type of Santa. It's one we haven't seen that much before. It's kind of got, like, the bad Santa vibes of Bob Thornton, but it's a little more angry, a little more just like, whatever, I'm going to be a little more jokey and insane, and it works well. And then the supporting cast, they play the parts well. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's the most brilliant thing ever committed to film. It does fine. The supporting cast plays their parts well. The oblivious family dynamic of like the kid who's always Instagramming, the wife who's like the trophy wife, the failed actor, it works fine. The more emotional crux, like the little girl and her parents, they're a little bit better, and that's fine. You need that. The girl plays off well against Harbour. Just that energy of like, yeah, you need like a young kid in here that's going to make it work. The strongest part is the kids aren't annoying. So that's really good. And it works well. And again, it's kind of hard. I say hard loosely. It's hard for you to write an authentic take on the 2020 capitalistic season this time of year authentically, because again, Christmas has kind of become like a more commercial thing as opposed to the true meaning of it. We could get into that in a whole other conversation. We're not going to. This film plays it off as just like, yeah, Santa's upset because it's been taken over by other people. I'm like, that is realistic and true. And I buy that. And then it just goes into an action movie. And the action looks great. There are some continuous takes, like long tracking shots. I'm like, holy shit, we're committed to this? My goodness, does it look great. Very violent, very cool. Everything about that on film, it just looks so beautiful and different. And I'm genuinely impressed with what it was doing. It didn't take It didn't take its concept loosely. It's like, no, it's Santa. He's a fighter. He's going to beat the shit out of some guys. They're all going to be assholes about it. If we spoof Home Alone, you're going to feel the Home Alone spoof coming. And I'm like, you're damn right I am. That's awesome. If you are really interested in finding something for your family to do this holiday season, I do recommend going out and watch this film. It has really good Christmas vibes. It's going to bring you closer to your family, and you're just getting an enjoyable action flick with a really strong premise. And you're seeing Santa in a new setting is always really fun. Everything about Violent Night, I think, hit on every cylinder. I'm not going to tell you it's the best script ever made. It's the best acted film. It's a mid-budget action film with the right types of jokes, the right type of meta humor for this holiday season. No complaints from that whatsoever. It's violent. It's cool. Everything is working well. It's surprising how well it's working, because the concept could easily fall apart, but it didn't. It held strong, it made something genuinely unique and fun, and it's worth checking out this holiday season. So, Violent Night, I'm going to give a 6 out of 10. Okay, now we gotta talk about Confess Fletch. This is a film that came out kind of in the middle of the year, the earlier half, I would say. It was dumped in theaters for a minute. Miramax distributed it, and they were in like a whole whatever the hell period going on there. It's a John Hamm-led comedy based off the books, which are based off of, the Chevy Chase movie from the day. So a reboot that's going to go to theaters for a week, then straight to Paramount. Miramax will distribute it, and no one's going to think about it again. Here's the thing about Confess Fletch. I had no desire to see this film, but when we're getting this close to the end of the year, I need to do like my big wrap up to kind of get everything back together. So I'm like, okay, let's watch Confess Fletch. This is a bizarre movie in all of the right ways. First off, I gotta say this because it's undisputable in my opinion that this is the most 80s film ever made out of the decade. The acting, the jokes, the length of the film, every single beat of this movie feels like an 80s movie. The way Hamm is playing off the scene, the facial expressions he makes, the length of the story where it's like, okay, here's the supporting characters, here's who's going to be appearing, here's the jokes we're going to make, here's the score. It all is 80s. It's bizarrely 80s. And that's the point. It's supposed to be a throwback to that decade. And it does it perfectly, in my opinion. Like, there's hardly a movie I could think of that does it better to capturing that spirit. And it's set in 2022. That's the amazing thing. This movie is set in a post-pandemic world, and they make jokes about that, where they use cell phones, and they use Twitter, and they use masks and stuff. I'm like, this is surprisingly brilliant, where it's still set in today's times, but it has the feel of a throwback era. And maybe that's why it didn't do too well, because you can't pinpoint exactly what this is supposed to feel like or how this is supposed to behave. And that's going to throw some people off because people want clear-cut stuff. This is anything but. And it's very impressive that way. Look, we failed John Hamm. I feel like he's put in this weird bubble where he does Mad Men, can't catch a break in a big movie. We're not putting him in any big franchises. We give him Fletch, a great place for him to be. It doesn't do well. We forget about the movie. He is so on point with what this movie's trying to be. Is that point for everybody? No. But those of us who it is for, you get the jokes. You get what he's doing here. It is surprisingly Chevy in all the right ways. Not the annoying parts of Chevy, it's the good parts of Chevy and Bill Murray and that whole generation. It's so specific. It's very impressive that way. The actual story is kind of cool. He's staying at like a Airbnb somewhere. There's a body that's on the doorsteps. The police come. He's trying to prove his innocence while working to get something for his girlfriend. And the girlfriend's stepmother gets involved. And then you see the police are doing this thing over here. And he's working for a friend at the newspaper. And Kyle MacLachlan shows up. And you're like, what are you doing? And it's all flowing perfectly. Like, there's never a dull moment. It's a brisk, like, just around the 90-minute mark. I'm like, oh, man. Don't tease me anymore. It might be like 100 minutes, 89 minutes around there. It's really strong. And you're just like, damn, we used to just get in and out because why are we lingering on this more than we have to? Very impressive. The scenes where it's just John Hamm and John Slattery playing off each other like old friends is really good. It has the closest vibes to like a classic, like old school Hollywood duo that you see in the Golden Age. Like, it is so specific and incredibly well done. This film just took so many more chances than you're expecting from it. Like, it just is a quiet film where it's like, okay, this is the story we're telling. We're just going to have long tracking shots of Ham walking in and out of scenes. The dialogue's going to be very cheesy for the 80s aesthetic, but it's also going to feel like this guy could be real. Nobody's really an idiot. They're all very specific characters that are made specifically. It is so weird, but it's something that's just subtly brilliant about it. I do think it holds up incredibly well. I'm genuinely impressed with this film. It just knew exactly the beats it needed to tell, exactly how hard it needed to strike. Kind of fun in that way. I get it. It's on Paramount Plus. If you have Paramount, it's free. It is definitely worth checking out. An easy binge for one night. And if we get more people watching it, maybe we'll get a sequel, because I would watch 100 of these because of how brisk and simple it is. A good palate cleanser, if you will. So, Confess Fletch, I am also going to give a 6 out of 10. But keep in mind, folks, these 6 out of 10s, they're hard 6s. Very good films, both of them. So that's going to do it for this double feature. I think I'll do another one before the end of the year. There's a couple other movies I do want to talk about. But until then, thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Hive. And I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, happy holidays.